Welcome friends, welcome to the St. Thomas Syro-Malabar Diocese of Chicago Catechetical videos. Today's video is going to be on the textbook of grade 11, chapter 2. The chapter is Jesus the Historical Person. In this session we are going to talk about Jesus' place in history and historical testimonies that we have of Jesus. Before we talk about the history of Jesus, let's understand what is history. History is very different from mythology. History is the account of the truth that happened at any particular time about a person or about a thing in the past. This is very different from mythology, which are stories written to inspire people. But history is an actual account of day-to-day things that may have happened. That's important for us to know as we go through this chapter. Does anyone remember BC and AD? Today, this terminology has changed to BCE and CE. BC, of course, stands for before Christ. AD, Anno Domini, which means the year of our Lord. What is interesting here is how the birth of Jesus was considered central to the accounts of history and the way years were divided between old and new. Today, in order to remove religious context from this, they've changed it to BCE, which means before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. But one thing cannot be denied of how important the birth of Jesus is in history. So important and so pivotal that it was put as a central pivotal point in calculating or accounting for the years throughout human history. Now let's talk about the historical testimonies of Jesus. When we think about historical testimonies, we should think of all of the historians throughout time who would have come to know about Jesus. And this does not exclude historical writings in the Bible. The Bible is a combination of many books, not one author writing the whole, but many books from many authors brought together. So when we think about the history of Jesus, both biblical and non-biblical writings should be taken into account. First, let's talk about non-biblical sources. The historian Flavius Josephus is our first historian that we can talk about. He lived from 37 to 100 AD. Flavius Josephus was a prominent Jewish historian. His works on the Jewish life is only second to the Bible itself. His book, Jewish Antiquity, talks about all of the history of the Israelites, all the way to the 1st century AD. In his writings, he talks even about Jesus. He talks about John the Baptist, Jacob, the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ. In one of his books, we read, "In those days, Jesus, a clever man, lived. He was doing truly uncommon things. He was the master of those who gladly receive truth. Pilate killed him, nailing him on the cross. He rose up on the third day and appeared to them as a living person. It's interesting to see how various historians gathered information about Jesus and wrote this for all of eternity. Other historical testimonies come from Pliny the Younger, a Roman governor, and Tacitus, a great Roman historian. In one of his letters, Pliny the Younger, the governor, wrote, "There were many Christians in Bithynia, a territory of his kingdom." He adds that early in the morning they get together and adore Christ as they adore God and sing praises to him. Although he wasn't writing about Jesus himself, he lived in a time when a minority early Christians lived, and he had gotten reports about how they worshipped Christ. Tacitus, a great historian in the Roman Empire, wrote, "Certain Christ, who was killed during the reign of Tiberius the emperor and while Pontius Pilate was the governor, was worshipped by the so-called Christians." As you can see, prominent Roman authors knew about Christians and the lifestyle they lived. Another historical source of Jesus' life is the apocryphal books. These books were not accepted into the Bible. However, they give a vivid picture of Jesus' life. Some of these books include the Acts of Thomas, the Gospel of the Hebrews, Gospel of Nazarene, Gospel of Peter, Proto-Evangelium of James. These books, due to various reasons, were removed and not considered authentic. However, they are still great sources of information and history about Jesus' life. Next is Judaic traditions. We all know about the book, the Torah. This is the laws that were given down from Moses to the Israelites. But there is another book called the Talmud. These were oral Judaic traditions that were at one point in time written down. The Talmud refers to Jesus and his miracles. The Talmud says in one section, on the eve of Passover, they hanged Jesus the Nazarene. In another section, it talks about the disciples of Jesus. In conclusion, Jesus' birth is one of the pivotal moments of human history. Think about any general summary of history. Jesus and his life is a critical moment in time. Jesus is referred to in history in many historical texts, both within and outside of the Bible. First century Jewish and Roman historians have written about him. The sources of historical truths about Jesus come from biblical books, apocryphal books, Jewish and Roman historical accounts, and Roman Empire written records. Thank you, everyone. This is the end of session 1.